This is
Halloween is over, but spirits never take a vacation. Today we uncover the mysteries of the unknown and dive deep into supernatural. Today we have a truly haunting journey ahead as we explore the rich history and ghostly tales of St. Augustine, Florida. Our guest is a seasoned paranormal investigator and the author of St. Augustine, Afterlife, a groundbreaking book that separates fact from fiction about this historical city's ghost stories. Through meticulously researched narratives, real interviews, and exclusive paranormal investigations, they've uncovered the chilling truth behind St. Augustine's most infamous hauntings. Whether you're a history buff, a paranormal enthusiast, or just curious about the unseen world, this conversation is going to pull back the veil on the lingering spirits and historical tragedies that define St. Augustine's supernatural legacy. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, the one and only Ryan Dunn. There he is. I love the red walls there. Red rum. No, okay.
Yeah, I've got an awesome. It's my office upstairs. I love it. I've got a little hideaway in the house. It's perfect.
Well, I've never been to St. Augustine. I've always wanted to go, but, being a history buff and, knowing that, this is the first city in the whole United States, I'm excited, the oldest city, to be a part of this amazing country. So, first of all, you were born and raised there?
So I was born and raised in North Carolina.
Oh.
Me and my wife moved to Savannah in 2010. And then we started doing paranormal research.
Oh, wow.
And 2015, we started doing research down in St. Augustine.
And what made you get down to St. Augustine from North Carolina?
Well, we were pretty close by the time we moved to Savannah, so it was only less than 3 hours drive from Savannah. And a few of our colleagues had suggested some haunted locations we should investigate. And once we got down there, we realized the city was a hotbed for paranormal locations.
Yeah, like I said, every town, city in this country, in this world, probably has its own hauntings because people have lived there, or even people might have lived there before even the house that is haunted was there. So, and that goes back to, I always ask my people if it's a UFO or Bigfoot or ghost. We all have our story that inspired us to be a little more interested in this paranormal genre than the most of the people. I grew up in a haunted house, so I think that inspired me and my family to be really interested in ghosts and spirits. So tell us your story. What was your story of did you grow up in a haunted house, or what was your first experience?
So I've always had, real big interest in paranormal. And as a kid, I was born in 81. So I grew up with a lot of the horror genre, a lot of the scary stories to tell in the dark books, as well as just a lot of the haunted stuff on TV that really got me into an interest in it. But when I was 6 years old, my grandfather called my father. We were at his house and said, "Your grandmother's sick. We're taking her to the hospital." And on the way to the hospital, I got upset and told my dad, I said, "Dad, she's dead."
Oh, wow.
And he was kind of surprised. He said, "No, she's fine." And when we got to the hospital, she had died. And she died about the same time I had said that. So I don't know if there was some kind of connection or not.
Well, were you close to your grandma?
We were really close.
Yeah.
And I was 6 years old when she passed. So I do think I kind of felt that she had left.
Wow. Yeah, I think, it sounds like you may have a little bit of a psychic ability in there, or did you have any visitation, or what is it just you knew?
Just somehow I knew. It was really weird. I was in the back seat of the car and I just got really upset as a kid and said, I said, "Dad, she's dead." Like I all of a sudden just had a feeling really strong that she had passed. But since then I've always had weird feelings in areas, but nothing really to where I would say psychic as far as seeing ghosts type of thing.
Right. Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember we were on vacation and I had a dream about this dog it was my uncle's dog, but we were best friends. And so in my dream, they were trying to kill it. there, and I woke up crying. I was like, Dad, call my uncle and make sure the dog's okay. And he called and, check on everything. Then he's like, oh yeah, Tony wants to know how's the dog. Oh, I had to kill and put it down. And I was like,
oh wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think especially as children, I think we're definitely closer to the abilities to understand spirit world, better than adults do. So, well, in your book, one thing I want to talk about, you are great about separating fact from fiction. And I want to know from, your years of doing this, and especially with St. Augustine in this book, what are some of the most surprising myths that you've debunked, since you've been in St. Augustine? Because I'm sure there were plenty.
There are. There's a couple of my favorites, but one is with Casa de Sueños, which means House of Dreams. It's a bed and breakfast. And It was the Garcia funeral home in the 1950s, which turned out that part was true. But the story was Mr. Garcia was so good at embalming that he would put bodies on display on the front porch, which used to be, like all glass window area. Right. We've got photos of the original funeral home, and they had advertisements in the paper, and that was just a front porch. There was no windows there, so there's no way he would have put bodies outside. And in the 1950s, what person's going to let their loved ones be on display, having corpses on display on somebody's front windows? So that was one that always I thought was really strange.
Isn't it funny how stories become like these legendary tales, but even with my hometown, I remember my mom, it just goes to show you, but my mom and her friend would always, they were like, hey, let's make up rumors about each other and see how it changes by the time it gets back to us. I mean, they were completely different in just a few days, let alone 100 years. I can't even imagine some of the stories that have been enhanced over so many hundreds of years. So, yeah, but when you have proof, like you said, pictures and stuff like that, and it's kind of cool to debunk. But there has to have been some of the accounts that you were like, oh, I don't know if this is true or not, but you walked in and you did some research and said, there's a lot of truth to this. What is one that stands out the most that you really maybe thought was a debunkable that was not?
There's one about at Scarlett O'Hara's, a guy named George Coley actually owned the place, and they said he died in his bathtub from being killed. I guess his wife was having an affair, and the guy that she was sleeping with and her drowned him in his bathtub. But George Coley actually died a few miles away. However, supposedly he does haunt the place. And they would tell us that they had encountered the ghost of George. We thought maybe, they just added on to the story. Right. And we were able to get the name George on EVP in the building, which was really fascinating. And we got a couple other things tied to, an old man that's still haunting that old building. So it was neat to see that, there is something still hanging around, even though somehow he didn't die there, yet he's still around that building.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And we'll stay in St. Augustine for a second, but when you I'm sure in North Carolina, it's like probably St. Augustine. There's so many battlefields and old plantations and just old homes. I'm sure up there there's plenty of haunted homes and lands up there, I'm sure. Have you done a lot of investigations up in North Carolina also?
Just a few recently, and it's odd because that's my home state.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Savannah so long. We've been sticking mainly to Savannah, St. Augustine, and Charleston. But in the past couple of years, we've done the USS North Carolina battleship in Wilmington a couple of times. And we got to spend the night on the whole battleship for 14 hours.
Wow. That's pretty cool. That would be cool.
That was awesome. We had the whole ship to ourselves.
Was it creepy?
It was wild. One of the cool things was there was a hole blown in the side of the ship during World War II where a Japanese torpedo hit it, and 8 sailors died in the shower room then.
Oh, wow.
And we got an EVP of a man named Leonard in that room, and Leonard Pone was one of the people that died when the torpedo hit. So that was pretty significant.
And speaking of that, you in your book you did a lot of exclusive investigations on many of your locations. So like people, there's people that we kind of relate to better. People we work with, loved ones. But locations, was there ever a location that you just felt like had a really strong impression on you? Like you've been there before, or you felt like there was a connection with the spirit, or how do you, first of all, tell us, was there ever a location like that, and how do you present that, or how do you approach that without getting attached to a spirit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the locations I felt really attached to is the St. Augustine Lighthouse. And that had a tragic story. The lighthouse keeper, when they were building it, they had a cart that would transport supplies to the lighthouse from the water. And his kids would ride it up and down on weekends when they weren't using it. And it hit the water and it toppled on top of the kids and they had drowned. They were pinned down by the cart. And people have seen little kids coming out of the water, dead kids walking right up out of the water.
Oh my God.
The whole time we were there on the investigation, I was hearing kids laughing in the woods right by the lighthouse. I was hearing kids in the lighthouse itself all the way up the stair rail. And this is late at night. We had it ourselves. And I guess being a father, having 2 kids myself, 2 teenagers now, but they used to be small. I guess that was kind of hard knowing that these kids died there so young and they're still hanging around the lighthouse. As a dad, that to me was pretty tough. I
mean, have you ever sat down and just spoke to these children? I mean, it may seem kind of weird, but they're still in that lifetime, and even now they're still in that childlike mode. Have you ever thought about just sitting down and having a conversation with them?
So I was trying some EVP work, especially in the tower where we were hearing kids laughing, and I kept getting a little girl saying, "Get out," near the top. So of course I felt like not evil. I just felt like they wanted to be left alone. But then we're walking around the lighthouse grounds outside the tower. We're hearing kids laughing and running right up behind us. So it's like, I felt like they were really just trying to mess with us almost.
And when you say
kind of creepy too.
When you say get out, I remember you might be a little too young, but Eddie Murphy, when he was a stand-up comic, when he would say the difference between white people and black people in a haunted house. I don't know if you remember this, when he says,
I do remember that. Yep.
It's like with white people, it's like, get out. We're like, oh, what is that? We walk up the stairs and look for it, and black people, it's like, get out. We get the hell out of there. I always remember that. I won't say exactly what he said, but that's the gist of it.
Oh yeah, old Eddie Murphy was great. He was classic.
He was hilarious. But yeah, if somebody told me to get out, I probably would go, oh, okay. I'll probably I'll exit stage right. So when you're conducting a lot of these interviews, and a lot of them are firsthand, what is it like, hearing this directly? Because when hearing it from a uncle, aunt that was talked about their great grandfather, that's one thing. But when you hear it directly from the people that it happened to, what do you look for? Because sometimes these people may believe it, but it could be a little crazy. There also can be.
So we see that. We see some kookiness. So we really look for people that are really credible, seem like they're have a good head on their shoulders. But my favorite people we interview are like policemen, firemen. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, the first thing they say is, look, before this incident happened, I didn't believe in any of this. And then they kind of want to keep their name out of it a lot of times, which shows me that they're not trying to do it to get fame or get written about in a book. They're just genuinely scared, and it blows their mind they've encountered something they can't explain.
Yeah, I think that would make me feel better if somebody's like, I'm not necessarily want the spotlight. I just want to tell my account and be on my way. Because there are a lot of people, especially with podcasts and TV shows and stuff, they want to enhance a story to go viral or and make everybody likes a great story, but a lot of us like that are the investigators or the people like I've been doing this for 14 years. We want to hear true accounts so we can relate to it, so we can feel like we are not alone, because there's a lot of people out there that still are experiencing things, but they're scared to speak up because they feel like they're the only one that's going to understand. But no, there's a lot of us that really do believe you and trust in what you're saying. But yeah, there's a few out there that's probably not.
Yeah, the ones I've always stuck to that we keep or that we use for our reports and for our interviews as well as our books is the ones that just seem like very credible people, and park rangers and people that just. So one of the guys we did from the battleship in North Carolina was a retired Vietnam vet.
Oh,
And this
wow.
guy was really tough dude. He was in the Tet Offensive, and he was like, "Look, man, I didn't believe in any of this till I worked on this ship, and now I've seen too much to not believe."
Yeah.
So it's cool when you get those type of folks that aren't really the type you would think that would manufacture something.
Has there ever been somebody that you interviewed that when they're telling you the story, you started getting like the little hairs on your arms start to stick up, or feeling like maybe there's still some spiritual attachment that, because because some spirits don't like to let go of the people that they have haunted, or even demonic, because there are some spirits that are not so nice. So have you ever interviewed and felt like that presence of something that was like, oh, something's not right here?
Quite a few times, and especially when we do interviews on location. I remember we did a walk through a prison in West Virginia, and just walking through with the lady as she was describing what happened in these locations. You could feel the energy as she was telling us about these different spirits haunting this prison.
Oh, prisons and mental hospitals, I'm sure. Or have you ever went into a prison or a mental hospital? Have you done investigations on that? That one always I want to, but it still makes me a little anxious to think about it.
So we've done West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville, which is pretty well known, and we've done the St. Albans Sanatorium up in Radford, Virginia.
And what was it like? What was it like going into these facilities? I mean, how did you prepare for that?
The prison was really bad. I mean, it just felt awful. And then knowing the history of these people that were like rapists, murderers, just really human beings. And then I know one of the cells she took us in was the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, and thank God she said he was shanked there. So I was like, well, he probably had it coming. But just knowing in the stuff, you don't think about the graffiti that's on the walls from these prisoners, and just horrible things that you don't think about before you go into a location, that you just feel gross after even just being in that type of environment.
How do you declutter, and how do you like come down off of that investigation afterwards? Do you meditate? Do you say prayers? Do you wash in holy water? I mean, how do you end your day once you leave a presence like that?
One of the first things I like to do is get a shower and just change out of the clothes from the investigation, because even if I'm not sweaty, they feel gross, you know, I guess because of where we've been.
I'm sure.
But I've used holy water. My wife is really good with herbs and doing all kinds of cool stuff. So she's always sending me with all kinds of things. If she doesn't go on the investigation with me, my pockets are filled with all kinds of things for protection. So she's always been really good at looking out for the team.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to not only going in, because there's a lot of people that, especially TikToks and Instagram now, that they go into these haunted places and not really protecting themselves. And I think it's important to get the knowledge, listen to people like Ryan and other people that have done this for a long time to protect themselves, to go into these environments, because you never know what you can leave with. And so I think it's good to know how to do that. So there's a thing between historical accuracy and supernatural elements of an investigation. How do you balance that? How do you approach the balance of these stories? Because do you notice like the historical element and the supernatural? I'm trying to say this correctly. The significance of the historical event create the supernatural elements. have you noticed, like, if it is a battleground or a murder, or do you see mostly just people that have died and don't want to leave? I mean, is the historical significance, do you see more spirits, or I'm kind of curious about that.
That's one of the big things we're big on doing our own historic research, because we find a lot of what we catch on investigations ties really closely with what happened historically at the locations. We've had EVPs of first and last names of people that have died in these buildings. We've been able to capture shadow figures and things on video and thermal imaging in locations where people in interviews have said they had seen these figures, which to me is really fascinating. When you do the interview and the history first, then the investigation, the results really line up with what you found through the interview process and the historical research.
Yeah. Because like I said, I've been a big history buff all my life, and I do think sometimes the history creates many of these paranormal activities, and sometimes it's just a native culture has I'm going blank here, where they bury their people,
burial mounds.
Burial mounds. Yeah. So there, I think, sometimes it could be, significant other, just a burial location versus, has to be a killing or a murder or something like that. So, we do have a question from the chat room. Alex, thank you for the question. It says, in order to prevent spiritual, undeserved attachments, what Ryan does after after location ends. So kind of what you said, you take a shower, change clothes. Go ahead.
As well. I was going to say, I've used holy water and smudging with sage too sometimes. My wife's really good about the sage.
Oh, good. Yeah. I hear sage a lot helps with spirits, cleansing and clearing. So yeah. Do you go into an investigation with any protection of a prayer or anything, or do you kind of just say to yourself, I hope nothing goes wrong?
I usually pray to myself, and then my wife always prepares a lot of things spiritually as far as that goes for us. But I know when we did the prison in West Virginia, she put holy water in a spritzer bottle for us. So right before we went in, we're spraying our whole body down with holy water in a spritz bottle. So, which we were laughing about it, but I think later on it was probably a smart idea.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So when you met your wife, I'm curious about this because it seems like you and your wife work together a lot. So was she into this paranormal investigation when you met her, or did you kind of bring her into the business?
So neither one of us were. We got married in 2007. And we didn't move to Savannah till 2010. And we moved into a house that was built in 1888 and that was haunted. So that's kind of what led us into doing investigative research.
Well, I give her kudos, because many women wouldn't want to, they're like, no, leave the ghost alone. We're going to stay over here in our lane. So yeah, I give her kudos. What's your wife's name, by the way?
Kim. So me and Kim Dunn. So the two of us have been doing the tours together and doing investigations together since 2010. So
oh wow, so wow,
we're together as business partners, which is awesome.
I love that. And especially you guys can work together, because many husband and wives they kill each other by the time the end of the day. So I give you kudos for that too. So you've been to a lot of locations, and like you said, even the ship itself. So what were some of the challenges of gaining access to many of these locations? Because I know in California it's difficult. Like, you have to buy a permit, you have to get this, and if you bring a camera, you have to pay for a filming, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff to go through just to get in. And a lot of places don't want to be known as a haunted place. They don't want to scare off tourists. So what is it like, the challenge of getting into some of these historical places?
Honestly, just persistence. I've got a list of places we've wanted to investigate for years that have kindly turned us down. So every 6 to 8 months, they get an email again, and we just keep on over and over. some of the places we've gotten into have taken us. We just did a place last month we've been trying to investigate for about 10 years. And
Wow.
they just let us in. And I don't know why they changed their mind, but finally, I guess they just got tired of me sending them emails. So
I have to say,
definitely persistence.
yeah, I have to say, years ago, I had an entertainment show, and even with my paranormal show, that was something I never stuck with me. I would hear no once, okay. A month later, I would send another one, okay. No, okay. And then they, like you said, finally they're like, okay, you can,
Yep.
you can come. And I think that's persistence and just, and not being disrespectful. I think it sounds like you're going into these locations and being very respectful of the people that either own it, and also the respectful of the spirits that are there, which I think makes a huge difference. So, and how would you give people advice of going into and not disrespecting a spirit? Because you know how these people like start cussing them out. Come on, show yourself. I mean, how do you go in and really show respect to a spirit?
I just treat them like normal people. I mean, they were people that have lived and are still lingering around in the afterlife. And if they're children, you obviously want to speak to them a little softer, just because they see scary adults coming in. If they're adults, still just speak to them with respect. That's the main thing. And I think we get better results with EVP and with evidence and responses by just trying to speak to them respectfully as well.
Is there one, like you said, you just got the one that you said you've been working on for 10 years, but is there a location you're like, I really want this one, and you haven't got a yes yet, and or even you haven't even reached out to him yet? Is there one that you just have to get in there?
I mean, I really think the Amityville house would be amazing.
Oh my God.
Up in Ocean Avenue in New York, but the odds of ever getting in there are slim to never. The owners don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But I'd really love to just get in that house and see what's really going on, or what was going on, versus, I mean, now there's like 40 movies because there's no rights to the film, so anybody can make an Amityville movie. So it's gotten ridiculous, but the original story is fascinating.
Yeah, well, the original felt really cool, but Hollywood gets involved, and they do make, they don't want to just give the original story, because sometimes it's kind of boring. I have to say it, but they want to make it extremely horror or gory or whatever. So, and there's many stories that you have put in your book, but how did you choose between the stories that you put in the book and locations? Because I'm sure if you put every location in St. Augustine, you would have like a dictionary full of stories. How did you pick the stories that you put into this book?
Yeah, so looking at locations that were obviously really well known for hauntings, and from all their top haunted locations. And every story in the book are places we did get to investigate. So luckily, it won't go in a book until I investigate there with our team, with me and my wife and our crew. So that way we have the full account of the interviews, the history, and the investigative research. But yeah, just looking at locations that have been well known to the city for years for having hauntings, or kind of what led us. And then we started getting contacted by hotels that had hauntings. And that's how we got up with 44 Spanish Street Inn. They said, "Oh, we've got all this going on. You guys got to get out here." And it was superb. It was very haunted.
I think that's pretty cool that they want you to come. I just think it shows you, like you said, it shows you how you are respected in what you're doing. So I think that's something you can always take away from that. So I'm actually curious about your tours. I want to talk about that a little bit. You have it in 3 different cities?
Yeah, so we're in Savannah, St. Augustine, and we opened in Charleston earlier this year. So we're in all 3 now.
I think I've been on, like I told you, I've been on a couple of around the country, and I want to start going overseas and taking some of these tours. But what is it like to take people around the cities after dark, and what is the responses for many of these people? Are people scared? I mean, just enjoying? And for the people who have never been on one of these tours, because some maybe like get too scared and they don't want to join a tour like this.
So I think everybody just really enjoys the fact that, same thing with the book, our tours are all historically accurate. So we call out a lot of the fake stories, and we still talk about creepy stuff, bodies found on walls, or old funeral homes turned into bed and breakfasts.
Mm.
And then we also won't put it on the tour unless we have investigated there. So we bring a tablet and play evidence from all our locations. And we've got some scary apparitions on video.
Oh, wow.
Some super creepy EVPs. So I think that really makes the tour take it up a notch too.
Is there one spirit that seems to like the attention?
I do know when we go to the cemetery in Savannah, we'll get people that say they've seen a little girl standing by the fence.
Oh, yeah.
And we've caught EVPs there of a little girl. So that's kind of creepy that people have seen a little girl out there while we're doing the tour.
She's like, "Give me candy."
Yeah, so evidently she wants attention.
I guess so. That would be kind of funny. You're like, "Over here." Since you wrote the book, is there any other locations that you wish you could have had in this book that you've went to after the fact, after writing?
Honestly, no. I feel like there would be, but we lucked out. We really spent a few years researching all these locations so I could put them in the book. And I got to investigate with my wife the oldest wooden schoolhouse and all kinds of just really cool places that usually wouldn't let us in. Doing the fort, the Castillo de San Marcos, is a national monument. So those are a lot harder to get access to. So being able to do those was phenomenal.
So if people want to come see you, or at least any of the cities, is there one city that you would say for sure that they probably could see a apparition, or would it be this little girl at the cemetery? Would she be the one that probably can get caught on camera more than the others?
That's tough. I would tell them honestly, what you should do is come into Savannah, and then you could go to all three cities, because Savannah's kind of the middle.
Mm-hmm.
2 hours north is Charleston, and 2.5 hours south is St. Augustine. So you've got three of the oldest and most haunted cities in the U.S. really, really close to each other, which is cool.
That would be cool. I mean, if you think about it, if you just go on like one of these haunted tours, you don't have to stop in just one city. Go to all three.
Yeah, because they're so close. So.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. Do you have any plans to explore any other cities outside of the country, or other parts of the U.S.? Is there any cities that you really want to go and focus on?
So we've been doing some research in Salem, and we want to get back up to Salem, Massachusetts. And New Orleans has been on our hit list for a while, because New Orleans is amazing too.
Yeah, New Orleans. I bet you that is a hotbed of, a lot of parties, a lot of different crazy situations that over the last 300 or 400 or 500 years that have been a lot of spirits there. Well, before we get out of here, again, for advice for some of these people that are skeptic, who dismiss like these supernatural, workings that we do. How do you kind of brush that off, the skeptics of the supernatural, or do you even think about that?
So I kind of even welcome it. Me and my wife are Tauruses, so we're both very stubborn people. So even with an investigation, we have to see it kind of ourselves to believe it almost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just stubborn. I have to see it. So I get the skepticism, and I just tell skeptics the best thing they can do is go out on an investigation somewhere, take an audio recorder. You can get them for $50 or less now for a decent Olympus, and don't let it leave your sight the whole time. And then do some EVP stuff, go back and check it later. And when you've got stuff answering with direct responses and that recorder's never left your side, I'm not saying it's going to make you a believer, but you're going to start to question things.
That would be, yeah.
And that's a good way to start without spending a few $1,000s on a bunch of equipment, and you
right.
can even use your smartphone to record. So
has people ever invited you saying, hey, would you come and lead a tour, in a ghost town in California or something like. Has anybody's ever done that for you yet? And
No, but I would love to. I've only been to California once. We were out in Culver City filming with A&E, and I hate. It was nice, but I hate that's the only set I got to see. Long Beach, and that's about it. I'm ready to go in Manhattan Beach, which is beautiful, but I'm ready to see so much more of California.
Oh, California, there's a lot.
I'm ready to go up and down the coast. So
yeah, California, there's a lot of ghost towns and places that are definitely haunted that I've been to. But maybe we'll have to do that one of these days. Get you out here and lead us a tour for some of these haunted places. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, let me know. I'd love to. That'd be awesome.
Well, Ryan, so tell us again, where do people find your book, and where do people come and take your tours? Where can they go visit your website, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so our tours are available at afterlifetours.net, and my book's available. My wife has an online shop called the Other Side Spirits Shop.com is the website. But the Other Side's the name of the shop, and the books are available there. They're also on barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. And I've got the St. Augustine's Afterlife and then Savannah's Afterlife 1 and 2, all through Schiffer Books.
That's great. Well, congratulations on your book. Congratulations on your businesses that seems to be doing well with, people that love the afterlife and to get a little frightened here and there. I think, don't always go to see a horror film. Go on one of these haunted tours. They can be just as hair-raising as the movie theater. So I think I've been on many of them, and we had a great time. So, but anyway, I appreciate you, Ryan, for being here.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was a blast.
Of course. And next time, come back. Well, are you going to write another book? Are you going to get another one out?
Yeah, so Schiffer's already contracted me to write Savannah's Afterlife 3. So I'm going to have that finished by January 1st and sent off to them. So
love it. Love it. We'll come back when it's ready to come out.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and all the questions and people commenting in the chat room. We really appreciate you for being here. And make sure you check us out on Monday with Robert Hensley, Minutemen Report, Bonnie Burkett on Wednesday with Truth Be Told Transformation, and, of course, me. Every Friday here next week, we're going to be talking about JFK, so don't want to miss that. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Take care.